Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Fireproof Your Family workshop. It's actually Fireproof Your Life because the moment you start employing these methods, you'll see that it actually affects so much more than just your family. But the main thing is it's going to help you create the kind of unbreakable bonds with your family and your children in particular that is going to serve all of you for life. So welcome. Thank you for making the decision to be here today. I really, really appreciate it. We need stronger, bigger, better families out there in the world because we know that's the foundation that society is built on. That's the cornerstone. That is how things are changed in the world, is through families. So welcome. Very grateful to have you here. And I want to see quickly, I'm working on multiple screens, so excuse me if I look around. I just want to see who's in the room today. Ah, wonderful. We have Alabama. We have Dallas. Welcome. We have, oh gosh, hello, Kate. We've got Tanya. We've got from all over. It's awesome to have you here. Thank you, Sweden. Sweden is in the house. Very, very welcome. And I see we have South Africa. I'm from South Africa. For the moment, we are planning on making big moves soon, but it's very, very awesome to have you all here. Imagine if all of us could have the kind of impact that we are going to talk about today. Imagine how different the world could look very soon. So I'm really looking forward to helping you see where the blockages are, where things can be changed. Even small changes make huge differences. And if we start today, everything in your household is going to look very different very soon. Okay, so by the end of this workshop, I promise you will be armed with the best fireproof parenting strategies for greater calm, joy, and connection in your home. So let me just share my screen so that we can start working through the different options. Let's see, it's that one there. There we go. I hope you can see what I'm seeing. Yes, welcome, Fireproof Your Life. You are here, you made it, we are ready to roll. Right. Okay. Just get my water. Today, we are going to talk about proven truths to bear in mind as we proceed. Commitment, and this is something I need to change. Commitment plus consistency equals reward. If you are just intentional about what you are going to learn today, and you resolve in your heart to apply it consistently every day, I promise you, you are going to see very real rewards very soon because it does change the way we interact. It changes the way that we respond in any given scenario. So it will make a huge difference. And I want you to know that as you apply this, your children are going to see a shift in your heart, a shift in your thinking. And that is also what is going to make a huge difference in the way that they interact with you. Because we know that what we model is so much more important even than what we say. That is what they're looking for. So in the next 2 hours, I'm going to teach you my stop, drop, and roll method, which is something that I think even though it sounds very simple, the more you apply it, the easier it's going to be for you to teach your children the same thing. And why it is so important to keep it really simple is because the better they can understand how to implement these methods, how to apply it to their own lives, so that it becomes something that's not only used in the house, but they can actually apply it to their relationships, their friendships, their team activities at sports, everywhere they go, even with their teachers, you will see that the impact of this will be so much more than just what happens inside the home. But of course, you are going to experience the real effect of it every day in your interactions. So how this works, and I'm sorry that I've got to turn every time, but this is just how the screens are set up. You've got to make a hard stop right now, whatever you are in the middle of. This is what you have done to come to this workshop. You have to say, okay, listen, world, I just need 2 hours. I need to go and learn certain things that can benefit all of us. But the way that it's structured is it's like the fireproofing thing, and this is why it's so important to always bear in mind that you are trying to control any flare-ups, you are trying to control any sparks that could potentially result in very hazardous periods of time and really ravaging fires, because if you don't tend to every spark, you don't know where it's going to end up. This is how runaway fires start. It's never a big thing. It's little things that are just blown out of proportion, which result in the big fires that eventually cause all the damage and destruction. So we are making a hard stop right now, and we are saying, okay, I can smell something burning. I can see somewhere there's smoke coming up. We need to deal with this very, very quickly. Then put everything down, because you have to go and investigate, what is it that I'm smelling? What am I seeing? Oh my gosh, that shouldn't be there. Okay, let's go and see what is happening. And then we drop everything to take action. Okay, so this is where we need to see, okay, what is happening? What is actually being sparked right now? What is the best plan for us going forward to try and control and contain this? All right. So even if you are, I know that when we were in America, this is actually one of the first things that my child learned in this new school, because they had a fire drill. And in the company where I work, they also had fire drills, but that is not everyone is doing that yet. So stop, drop, and roll. That is the first thing that you learn going into potentially hazardous area. Is you've got to make sure that everything about you is okay, that everything is in order and intact. And that's where it starts. It's like when you are flying as well, they always teach you with the oxygen mask. Make sure that you are connected first. Make sure that you've got everything strapped on and needed as is required, because otherwise you're not going to be able to help someone else. So it's important for us to always remember that. You make sure that you apply the correct methods, and then everyone else can fall into place, because they're seeing what is being demonstrated, and that is what they follow more often than not. So what we are going to talk about, some of it you might have heard before, some of it might be completely new, but just try and gauge it in the context of what we are going to discuss today, and try and see, as we're talking about it, what difference could this possibly bring into my family? Because previously, when we did this workshop, there was a mom there who she got someone to look after the kids while she was doing this. But then, of course, one just came out of the playroom having a complete meltdown in front of her. And what was so encouraging to me is she immediately implied the last point that we spoke about. And as she was applying it, as she was talking about it, as she was talking her child through it, about 10 minutes later, she came back and she was like shocked. She said, "Oh my goodness, this actually works." Thank you. I should hope so. But it was just so encouraging. While we were discussing it, she actually went and did exactly what we spoke about. And she was very happy to report that it actually worked. So that is what we are trying to go for here. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter who you are, what your circumstances are, what your parenting challenges are, this is going to work for you. Because more often than not, we find that the moment we start talking about stuff, you will discover that the person in the office next to you or the person on the train next to you is probably going through exactly the same thing. Because we often tend to think that if something goes wrong, oh my gosh, it must just be us. But it's not. There are very, very real things that every single mom is dealing with. And this is what I wanted to say to you today. Here I have quotes from two very different people, very different circumstances, and yet they found exactly the same thing. Linda Wooten said, being a mother is learning about strengths you didn't even know you had and dealing with fears that you didn't even know existed. How true is that? A whole new world opens up for you with 100 new different dangers that you weren't even aware of every single day. It's part of being a mom. Relax, we can talk through it. We're going to be working with that. And then what I really enjoyed was a quote by Maria Shriver, because she is the woman who tamed Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that takes a very, very special human being. Having kids, the responsibility of rearing good, kind, ethical, responsible human beings is the biggest job anyone can embark. Well, that says it all. So that goes for all of us. And we know it's not just us. It's not the circumstances. It's not the fact that you are not yet in a position to give your child everything that you feel you would have liked to. And because of that, you are experiencing these difficulties. That is not true. It's not because of circumstances beyond your control that happen, and now you're just seeing the result of that. That is also not true. Everything that we are dealing with, there is a way around it, but you're not going to know that until you actually employ methods that you're learning here today to see, okay, so it's not, because that's the first thing that we do as women specifically. But I know there are also dads here. So, when anything goes wrong or not according to plan or the way that you envisioned it, we are very quick to say, oh my gosh, if only I'd done that, if only I knew this, if only I had this. But it's not you. And that's very important to realize. So, imagine you putting all this effort. Let's just go to the next slide. Let's see. Yeah, we are going to talk today about how to go from chaos and confusion to clarity and calm. So important. Because imagine you put all this effort and time, and you are literally prepared to take the shirt off your back to go and just help in any given scenario, but the fires keep increasing. And that was me 20 years ago. I literally did everything I could think of just to try and contain the situation that was playing out in front of me. And nothing seemed to work. It doesn't matter how hard I tried, doesn't matter who I listened to. No one knew my circumstances. No one in my family was going through what I was going through. No one in my friends groups were going through exactly what I was going through. So I was really, really, I felt so defeated. I felt so hopeless. And that is why I want to help you today with everything that I learned, because I know it works. I learned firsthand. I needed to go and find new ways of doing things. I needed to go and study the courses. I needed to spend so much time on my knees. I needed to do so many things that no one else was doing that I knew of. And that is how I learned. And this is the privilege that I have today, to try and take you through everything that I learned so that you don't have to go through all of that. And this is really important for us to know. There is a way. There is a way. Sometimes we just need to help someone walk us through that so that we can get to the best possible, perfect result for us. And that is what that is about. So, yes, to help you have total peace of mind. What would you do to get that? To eradicate every fear that you're experiencing so far. And that's the thing, it's possible because I'm living it. And the clients that I've taught the same methods are experiencing exactly the same results. It wasn't unique to my situation. It's just information that no one really knew before, or that they didn't know how to apply it to get the best possible result. And that is what we are going to be looking at today. And what sparked this is last year, my child's principal, or headmaster, depending on which country you're in, we call it different things. He pulled me aside after a meeting and he looked at me, but with this very stern face, and he said, "How do you do it?" I was a little bit worried because when I was at school, none of what I'm teaching you today was being applied in my house, and I really, really needed direction. I wouldn't say I was a troubled teen, but I was going through things that no one else in my family seemed to have gone through. And I was not getting the guidance that I needed at the time. And it's not for lack of trying. Um, my parents tried, but they didn't know. They didn't know what I know now. Nobody else seemed to know because the methods that they were using, they actually did consult other people. They did consult whatever was available at the time, but that was not the right thing because back then, um, it was everything was yes or no, and there was one way to do things. There was one way that everyone needed to employ to do things, and this is just how they were taught. And it doesn't work like that. And that is why everything that I do, every single thing that I do now is so personalized because after learning through having my own children, I realized, but there's no ways you can have one rule that goes for everybody because my children were vastly different. And we as kids, I had two siblings, we were vastly different. So how can one rule be applied to everybody and you expect to have the most desirable result for everybody? Because we're all different. We all have different things that make us tick. We all have different things that help us respond to things. We have different ways of thinking. We have different ways of approaching any given situation. So how on earth can one rule fit all? It's not possible, right? So that's the thing. To get back to my story, when my child's principal pulled me away and asked me, "How do you do it?" I was very worried because I got into a lot of trouble as a teenager just because no one could help me with what I needed. So I thought, oh my gosh, what has my child done? And so, you know, I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "You know, my office is on one side of the building and the administration office is on the other side of the building. And all their classrooms had glass walls. So literally as he walked through the building, he passed by all the classes and he said, every time I walk past Daniel's class, I see him busy helping a group of students, or I see him helping the teacher, or I see him busy with things. And it just occurred to me that um, he is forever helping other people. And then when I spoke to his teacher about it, she said, yes, he is. He just seems to know in any given situation what to do. And if a child is having a problem with this thing, he's the first to reach out and go and help that child. Or he's the first to put his hand up and assist where necessary. And I know that you are a single parent. And this is not the kind of stability or wisdom or discernment that we normally see in single parent households. So, how do you do it? And I have to tell you, my heart just leapt out of my chest. I was so grateful to hear that. Because, first of all, that it doesn't matter what you teach your child and what you enforce in the home, you don't really know how they are outside of the home. How do they interact with others? How, you can only hope for the best because you know what you've taught them. But it's very encouraging when you hear someone like that say, wow, I really see a difference in your child. I really see things that I don't see in the other children. So how do you do that? And I have to tell you, it's praise God all the way because it's not my wisdom. It's because of things that God has taught me. But it really is about being consistent about things that you've learned and making sure that you employ those same measures. So what we are going to be looking at first and foremost is effective communication, because that is something that other people have commented on about my son and I as well, is we seem to, first of all, talk about everything. We are very clear about how we feel about those things. So, because I needed him to understand, okay, if you feel this way and no one else around you is feeling that way, why is that? And something that I was definitely lacking as a teenager that I needed more of was understanding, because it felt like I'm going through all this stuff that my siblings weren't going through, and I couldn't talk to my mom about it because she didn't understand what I was saying. She had her assessment of what I'm saying, and it was like, well, you've got to do this and this and this. And I would often say to her, but why? That doesn't make sense to me. And she would say, because I told you so. That doesn't work. That causes every imaginable form of rebellion. And they've proved that now, but back then they didn't know that. So I really want to encourage you to talk. And then you've got to talk without any form of judgment. You've got to try and see it from 10 different angles, because you're wanting to help your child communicate more effectively. Because where there is communication, there is every form of breakthrough. So we are going to be looking at this first today. And the reason why I'm also saying that is it's something that I had to learn before I could teach it to my children. And 20 years ago, when I was dumped in, well, thrust, thrust into an instant family, I didn't know any of this stuff. I was a good communicator. It was my job. It was things that I needed to learn to communicate effectively with clients, to be able to do presentations, to do all these things. But I was in marketing at the time. It was quite different. And now I'm coming into a family where this kind of communication was definitely not known. They really didn't talk about a lot of stuff, and especially not the kind of stuff that they were dealing with, because the thing is, their mother passed away from cancer. So I inherited a lot of hurt, a lot of confusion, a lot of, um, if you don't just kind of sweep it under the carpet type stuff, it'll go away with time. I inherited a lot of that. And I could not understand this because I couldn't make headway with these children. And they weren't particularly difficult or anything. It's just they were traumatized. And no one knew how to deal with that more effectively. So there was a lot of unspoken angst, a lot of drama, a lot of emotions, really big emotions. And I had to learn very fast that I've got to learn new things here, because everything that I knew was not what they responded to. Their dad definitely didn't know. And no one, as I said, no one in my family or in my group of friends was going through any of this. So it was really, really a very, very difficult process for me to work through. And that is why I was forced to go and learn new things, to go and do all the courses, to go and really spend a lot of time on my knees, because I had to learn things that no one else could help me with. Whereas now, when I had my son, my biological son, I had learned so much by then that literally from day one, before he could say boo ba, I was already employing methods that I learned that enabled us to never have to go through that. So from when he could start talking, when he could start communicating more effectively, when he could start telling me how he was feeling, or when I could help him work through the big emotions that I really struggled with the other kids. Immediately, there was such a difference. And the other children, noticed this difference. And even though, I'd worked with them through a lot of things, and we had dealt through a lot of things, and we learned to interact more effectively, even through Daniel's process, which is my youngest son, they learned a lot more about how they could approach things differently. And now the two daughters, they have children of their own, and so they have seen that whole process play out in front of them, and they are doing things a lot differently now. So we need to understand that every single thing that we impart actually has generational impact, and the more effectively we can teach them that today, the more effectively we can start from today and actually build new things into our homes, the more effective they are going to be able to communicate to the world around them, which is going to open new doors for them, which is going to help them engage more effectively with the world, where they can have more impact and also avoid unnecessary drama and trauma for themselves going forward. So this is really key stuff that I'm going to be talking about today. And I really need you to know that just if you're listening to it and you're not quite sure, okay, well, I'm not sure I'm going to do this thing or that thing. This is the whole point of a workshop. It's so that you can immediately ask questions, so that I can help you from today work through those things. And if you are going back to recordings, if you weren't able to participate on the day, but you're getting the recordings, send me messages immediately. Just start talking to me so that I can help you. Really employ these methods in the best possible way, so that you can start seeing real differences very soon. And so that you can just stop every spark that you are seeing flying around already, and learn how to engage more effectively with them. So we are going to go now to the first line. I feel like I need to change the screen around, but let's see how far we go. Okay. Now, the reason why it's also so important to get a hang of this before you actually get into a potentially explosive scenario is because of the way that all of us, all our brains were designed. Because often parents say to me, but I'm doing this thing and I'm not getting the right response in the moment. Well, you cannot build a city in a war zone. We are seeing that happening around the world. These are measures that you need to instill long before you get to the explosive situation. And this is why the moment you see a spark, you can extinguish it right there if you employ these methods. Because how the brain works is, the moment there is any spark, that is when your brain automatically goes into flight, fright, freeze, freak out. That's what I call it. Fight, flight, freeze, or freak out. And that is why, because the moment the adrenaline kicks in, because it's a dangerous situation, or someone's really got your back up, or someone says something that just immediately sparks a reaction from you, the adrenaline starts. And that means as the adrenaline kicks in, your primitive brain kicks in, because that is how we were designed. And this is to protect you. It's not a bad thing. This is actually how the brain tries to protect the body. It's amazing how we were created. But we need to understand how that works, because you are not going to be able to extinguish this thing once it is erupted in a huge situation. That's not where yes, you can try and calm everyone down. Yes, you can try and just contain the situation. But these measures need to be built in long before that happens. So, because as the primitive brain kicks in, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. So even if you think you are using your brain in this situation, chances are you're not. Your brain just makes you think that because the rest of you is wanting to take control of the situation. So we need to then train our brain that the moment anything you detect any kind of explosion happening, the moment that happens, you actually need to say, okay, well, we need to do one of the following, because my rational brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, my problem-solving brain, my deep thinking brain is not switched on like now, because the rest of me is feeling the tension. And so until everyone calms down, until you've actually alleviated the situation, your rational thinking brain cannot kick in. And that is just the way we were designed. That's not got to do with maturity or wisdom or anything like that. That is just the way the brain works. So we need to start conditioning the brain from today. The moment I see any of that, I need to do the following. So it becomes a response situation. And that is something you need to train. That is, think of it on a physical level, on a mental level. You need to train for, like if you're an athlete, you need to start training today to be able to run a marathon one day, because your body needs to learn what I need to do in any kind of situation for me to be able to complete that marathon and be successful in it. That is something that you need to learn every single day. You've got to train your body. Now, it's exactly the same way with your brain. It's exactly the same way in terms of potentially hazardous situations. You need to learn how to react. And this is why the stop, drop, roll method is so key, because you've got to immediately identify, whoa, there's something here. Okay, let's drop everything. Let's go and investigate and see what we're dealing with. And then we know, okay, this is the action plan because this is what I have detected. And that's how that works. So we are going to look at 10 things which are very, very important that we need to build into our homes to be able to contain this properly. Because it really is mainly a result of how you've conditioned the brain and what have you learned. Because you are automatically going to fall back on what you know, what you've learned by now and what you know. Okay, so we are going to start now with the 10 communication tools and practical exercises that will help you instill the calm to avoid the crisis and foster greater connection with your child.